here on. So we are here tonight to talk about the proposed project we have coming up out here on the bypass at the intersection of Coakley Cottage and bypass and other associated projects that go along with that. So to start off, I'm Eric Eby. I'm the city's traffic engineer and I work in the DPW. And we have here tonight Peter Rice, our director of the Public Works, Dave DeFosas, construction project manager. And sitting up at the front table is Mark Batchelder, our design engineer, who's working on this project, and associate engineer Tyler Reese, who's doing a lot of legwork on this project. And Stephanie Secord, our Zoom driver here. And I think that is it. We don't have any city officials. If anyone else is here from the city, raise your hand. But I think that is it for tonight. So with that, we'll get on into it. So how many of you know what the worst traffic situation is in the city of Fort Smith?
Just mentioned.
Yeah, that's why we're here tonight. So, you know, for a long time, you can see on the diagram here, we've got the traffic circle at the top of the screen, right there, the portion of the traffic circle. And this is the bypass coming down here in the middle of the screen. Right here is the senior center where we're located right now. And this is Cottage Street and Coakley Road neighborhood back here. And this is Borthwick Ave, heading down to the hospital. And then on the other side is the new Hodgson Way, which connects to the old Kate Street up to Bartlett Street and then to Islington Street. So what we have is it's several smaller projects that are all coming together at the same time to make one bigger project. And really where this has come from is trying to address the traffic concerns that are out here on the bypass that have been going on for years. Ever since the second roadway here and the second intersection was signalized with Borthwick, these two signals here on the bypass have been very close together, do not work well at all. And it's been recognized by the state, and there was a plan, 20 years ago, a concept was prepared by the state to do something about this. And that's where we're picking this project up from, is taking their conceptual idea and trying to get it into reality and bring it forward. So what the project would be is the main part of it would be to remove this traffic signal at Coakley and Cottage intersection. And together with that would be extending the median. So the median would be a solid raised median all the way from the traffic circle down to, well, it would be determined where it would end. It would go through this intersection so that no left turns could be made at the intersection anymore. You would be limited to right turns in and out of Coakley Road, as well as right turns in and out of Cottage Street. So in order to accommodate those left turns that can't be made anymore, a key part of this project is to build a connector roadway from Coakley Road over to Borthwick Avenue. And this connector roadway would be constructed on what is now private property, shared between the Granite Group, Plumbing Supply, and the Fairfield Inn here. So the connector road would be split right down the middle on the side of the properties. The road would be one lane each direction with sidewalks, and that would allow residents from the neighborhood, if you wanted to go towards the traffic circle, you would go down this connector road, up Borthwick to the signal to make a left, and then up to the circle. Likewise, if you're coming from the south on the bypass, because you wouldn't be able to make a left anymore onto Coakley, you would first make a left here onto Borthwick, and then come in and take a right, then a left into the Coakley neighborhood. Likewise, traffic from the senior center coming out of the circle, you wouldn't be able to make a left up Cottage Street. You would have to come down to Hodgson Way, take a left, and then a left onto Kate Street, and then a left onto Cottage to get to the senior center. And likewise, if you wanted to take a left turn out of Cottage, you wouldn't be able to do that anymore. You'd have the option. You could either take a right turn, come up through the circle. Maybe if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's not bad. But otherwise, you'd want to come up Kate Street, go down Cottage Street, and take your left, on Hodgson Way. So those are the ways around this, how we would get traffic around this. So in order to build this project, there are several pieces of it. Number one is removing the signal, but the highest priority will be building this connector roadway. That allows the options of redirecting this traffic, left turning traffic. Likewise, over on Kate Street, there's the bridge over the Hodgson Brook is red listed. That's in very poor condition. So that has to be rebuilt. That has been added to the state's 10-year plan They've identified money in their plan. It's gonna be, state bridge aid money that would be used for that. The city would also pitch in a portion to that bridge reconstruction. So that bridge would have to get reconstructed. This connector road gets built, and also the Coakley Road culvert over the Hodgson Brook. The state inspected that this year. They notified the city that that bridge is now red listed. That's in poor condition now. That has to also be rebuilt. So all of these projects are coming together to try to get us into one major project. We're really at the beginning stages now. We haven't gone forward in design plans yet. We just have concepts in place. But we did recently get news from the DOT that we've been awarded what they call a CMAQ grant. It's CMAQ. It's Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Grant. That comes from Federal Highway, and that is a $1.2 million grant specifically for the removal of this traffic signal here and study, design, and construction of the median. That would take care of that portion of the project. The city would have to pay the amount required to design and construct this connector roadway, and we've estimated that at $1 million. That is in the city CIP as well. The Kate Street Bridge is another project. You know, we haven't gotten estimates on that, or the Coakley Road culvert, that still is to be determined. So, having said that, moving on to what the project goals are here. And as I've said, the congestion on the bypass between Borthwick Ave, the next signal, and then the traffic circle. It's one of the worst spots in the entire city for congestion. It's just very difficult to get out of there. This would remove one of those signals, give you storage room all the way back to the traffic circle for the left turns that want to come down and get into Hodgson Way, as well as just having one signal will make the traffic flow much better in this area. Also, because of the congestion on the bypass, what we've seen for many years is traffic that's coming out of town on Islington, instead of using, you know, Kate Street to Cottage Street and coming out this way and sitting through these two signals and then going through the circle. A lot of the traffic has been coming up Bartlett Street, then using Thornton to Woodbury, and then actually even bypassing the ramps and using Rockingham up in the neighborhood. So they've been coming through all the neighborhood streets in this area. And a lot of the projects that we're doing right now on Bartlett Street is to try to slow that traffic down on Bartlett, calm the traffic. Also, the reason we built this Hodgson Way connector road is to have a direct route into Islington Street from the bypass for truck traffic to Ritchie Lumber and other uses in the area. So this is the whole intent of this roadway, was to get traffic off of Bartlett Street. But until we can get this traffic out on the bypass, free flowing again, get rid of this signal, it's still going to be quicker for traffic to use Bartlett Street and come up to Woodbury and bypass the circle. So we really want to make this regional route more desirable for that regional traffic, get that regional traffic off of the local neighborhood streets. So also, if you've noticed along Borthwick, city recently reconstructed a multi-use path. It's a 10-foot wide, looks like a big sidewalk out there. And that is for bicycles and pedestrians. And that goes all the way down Borthwick. It starts up actually up around the curve here on Kate Street and comes down Kate and Hodgson, crosses the bypass, goes down Borthwick. The hospital built a portion of it all the way to Eileen Dondero Foley Avenue, where it meets up with another multi-use path. And that path brings you to the newly completed rail trail. So this is a great amenity for the neighborhood for biking and walking. However, this Coakley Road neighborhood is still cut off from this rail trail because they don't have any direct connection over to Borthwick where they can get to it. And there's no sidewalks on the bypass. So a major benefit of this connector roadway will be having sidewalks along the side of it. So this neighborhood will then have a direct route where they won't be trespassing through property and be able to have a nice connection to this regional rail trail. Another let's see, access to Portsmouth Hospital. Yeah, with the setup out here now with the two signals, you have a lot of congestion, gridlock between the two signals. Ambulances trying to get, you know, across the bypass or get from here to the hospital down Borthwick are often held up in congestion here. So removing this signal will help keep the traffic flowing, make it easier to get out of town, come down Hodgson Way and across the bypass and get to the hospital quicker. Maintain access to and from the bypass in both directions. As I've mentioned before, once we take the signal out and put a median in here, the left turns go away, so we've got to maintain that access to the neighborhoods on both sides. And that's why this connector road would still allow you to come to the Borthwick Ave signal and make a left turn coming in or out of the neighborhood. Likewise, maintaining the Kate Street Bridge allows traffic to get to the senior center and other neighborhoods here so that you're not cut off from the circle and making your left turns. And also these culvert and bridges over the Hodgson Brook, they're in poor condition. Regardless of any other project, these bridges need to be rebuilt because this is the only access into Coakley Road neighborhood. If this bridge fails, you're cut off. So we've got to get that fixed. And this Kate Street Bridge is you know, a major route for pedestrian traffic from the West End yards. School bus stops are up here. So we want to maintain access to the senior center as well, getting up to the neighborhood. So I mentioned, this is a concept plan that the state had put forward over 20 years ago, back in 2006. And what it showed was this connector roadway here between Coakley and Borthwick, removing the signal at Coakley and Cottage, constructing the median, all the way down to what was still the Frank Jones Center driveway at that time, because the West End yards hadn't been proposed yet or built. Cottage Street was still your main way to downtown. So this had there were some flaws to this plan because they didn't have a complete way to get around and get the traffic into downtown from the bypass. But now with this connection of Hodgson Way and Kate Street, it makes it a much more desirable, feasible route to process through here. It's also interesting to note the traffic circle was also proposed to have a big change. This plan shows it as being a massive signalized intersection. The traffic circle will go away. But that's not part of our plan. The state is currently has in their 10-year plan $1 million to study the circle and to determine what is the best alternative, because that circle needs to go. There's too many accidents. It's one of the highest accident locations in the city, in the area. It's old 1950s design. Traffic is too fast, too much volume in here. And I was just coming to the meeting tonight. The traffic was backed up all the way past Islington, up over the hill, almost to Greenlee. So that's another issue for the state to deal with. We're doing what we can. You know, we're using federal aid grant to work on this project, as well as city and private funds. So I mentioned briefly before, so the city's identified $1 million in the CIP for next year to design and construction of this connector roadway, which is really a key piece to the whole project. It will, working with the abutters here to acquire easements for the roadway. As I mentioned, there's a CMAQ grant, which totals $1.2 million for the design and construction of the median island and removal of the signal at Coakley and Cottage. We should be kicking off that grant from the state at the end of the year. The city has also identified, well, the state has in their 10-year plan, $1.335 million for the Kate Street Bridge. It's the amount it's going to cost to rebuild the bridge. The city is also kicking in another $415,000 here. That's a bridge that's red listed, needs to be rebuilt. Luckily, we got the 10-year plan, the commitment from the state to add some money to that project.
You know what year that's scheduled for in the plan?
The bridge, it's 28, but they noticed us recently that they want to start process sooner, so we're meeting this month with them to start the design process.
Yeah, kick off that. They would like to advertise it in 28. That's their goal. And the Coakley culvert, we've identified a consultant to work on that. We're trying to maybe look at economies of scale by having this consultant on the design for this culvert, also do the design for this one, but we're still in preliminary discussions with the consultants in the state as to how that can be handled. Speaking of the connector road, this is the plan, the conceptual plan that we've put together so far. Mark has done a great job on this. We this is Coakley Road at the top of the screen, Borthwick Ave at the bottom. Connector roadway is proposed to be one lane in each direction, wide enough with wide radii corners at the end, because we need to be able to accommodate tractor trailers coming in and out of the Chevy dealership over here, as well as tractor trailers to the Granite Group, large tractor trailers, you know, any moving vans or any other large trucks that come in and out of the neighborhood or these sites need to be able to make these swings in and out. The plan would also provide parking along Coakley Road, but it's actually on the side of the Fairfield Inn, as well as more parking here along the connector roadway for the Fairfield Inn. Because putting this connector roadway through and making openings to their parking lots would result in a reconfiguration of their parking spaces. This plan shows actually a net increase of 2 parking spaces for the inn. We're trying not to reduce their parking because that would complicate the approval process through the city. And also, we would be relocating the driveway. The current driveway to the Granite Group is located here. That would be closed off. A sidewalk would be built along Coakley Road, and the new driveway to the Granite Group would be in here for customer entrance. This would still be the truck use for the Granite Group. And the sidewalk would be built along here. That's shown in blue hatching, connecting to the new multi-use path on Borthwick. So,
Can I ask a question on Coakley Road? The garage comes out onto the Coakley Road. Is that gonna be blocked off? Because you're gonna have people coming off the traffic circle to cut in thinking they can get out and go up, and that could make our exit more thicker with more cars coming in. I've seen it this summer. A lot of people just go in, go right over to the port in.
are you talking about the,
She's talking
From
about the
the-
Chevy garage.
The Chevy garage.
oh, the Chevy garage? Yeah.
That little road that goes on to Coakley as well. There's a lot of big trucks and stuff and other cars just coming over to get to the hotels as is, or they're lost. Cause they think
They
it's
cut
another
through,
easy
yeah.
way.
Yeah, they would cut the, that's actually Chevy's driveway that comes out on County Road. Yeah, we wouldn't be touching that, they would still use that driveway. That driveway is located about somewhere off the screen here. I think it shows up better on this, it's this driveway right here,
Right,
so that would still stay, there wouldn't be any modifications to that driveway.
so then if they bring big trucks out again, once they, cause they bring them in, then they back them in, then they back out. They'll be able to swing around that access road as well.
Yes, and this roadway would be designed so that the trucks who normally would come out and make a left here, would be able to come down here, make a left, and a left out on Slivers.
What is the chance of having a very large dead end sign put right before you get to the loop of Coakley?
Yes, or actually, you know,
Go-
yeah,
go
right,
over the
in
left.
Yeah,
yes,
The
right,
dead end sign right there.
yeah, or no alley, yes, I mean, that's.
No, well, a dead
Yeah.
end something.
You'd want it probably right here so that they don't get to that point. If they get
Exactly.
past it, then they're gonna come around and go in.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, that's certainly.
is there a plan for a signal on Borthwick off that connector road?
No, we don't anticipate there'd be enough traffic here coming off that side.
I get this, man. 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 different days this week, or the last couple of weeks, I happen to go through there for something else. 37 cars coming from 33 to Borthwick at 10 o'clock by the time I drove from, actually, I came out of Coakley and came around. And I was going out the other end. The other day was 27. So that's a lot of cars.
Mhm.
And that's at 10 o'clock in the morning.
So,
And how are we gonna cut across the lane of traffic coming from the light and trying to cut left? I see that as a real difficulty, you know, like,
well.
not that I had like Madden light.
Yep. No, that, you raise a good point, and as part of this, the study and design of this signal removal, there would be a complete full traffic study done in the area. You would look at the traffic coming out of Coakley and using this intersection, using Kate Street, using all these roads. So this would be a full study. There was a study done for West End Yards when they were built, and they made projections to the future. But that was done, you know, pre-COVID, things have changed, we have this connector roadways. We need to look at this whole situation again on traffic to see what it would take, what it would need. Is there a need for traffic control at this location? Those things would be addressed in the traffic.
Because if you get one side clear coming off the rotary, they're gonna be whipping around. Because they're free now, they're not going slow from another stoplight. And they're gonna whip around the corner just as we could pull out and turn either left or right.
They would, you know, coming in, well, they have this driveway into the Chevy dealer right here.
So she's done. Because you'd be uninstructed coming from the circle all the way forward.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
she's implying that people will be going faster around the corner if they're.
So you decrease one car length at this street on one, decrease one car length, because I drive this pretty frequently. So you're gonna decrease one car length and you're gonna eliminate the ability of people to make a left-hand turn, but you're gonna ask them to make a couple more turns where there's no light coming onto West End Road. And then they're gonna be jammed up at that light, which is frequently has a good number of cars. I think that you may not be anticipating the correct amount of traffic, but to eliminate one car length at the end of Cottage by taking out that light. When that light is red, there's only one car length, so it's not jamming up the traffic circle. And it does back all the way down to Toyota sometimes, but only at certain times of the day, but it's gonna make it miserable, really miserable, I think, driving it very frequently.
That's what the traffic study will look at, and that's what will determine whether or not what's going to happen.
The state said a year or two ago that they were not going to approve taking out the light.
The state has supported our application. This
I told
application
them a
went
year
to
or
the
two
state.
ago and they
approved
said they did not support it and they were not gonna do it.
Okay,
So it's a little confusing to
so,
find
well,
out.
they
now
approved the
that-
grant. They're the ones who approved the grant. And I got their support. We did not submit this application without their support. We would not have done that.
Well,
Just
they're not
coming
on the
over
same
here
page.
tonight from Oakley,
Yep.
I happen to be looking up towards Lafayette Road. The traffic was all the way back up as far as you could see up to Middle Street. That was at 5.
I know, I've said it myself.
Are we at the end of your presentation?
Yeah, I think I had,
Jump in on
let me
the-
see, I had, I'll finish this off.
You
can
talk a little after.
Okay, hang on. Let's see. Okay, so I was gonna get into the next steps of the process. So we've got 4 separate projects that are all in one here. Number 1 is the connector roadway. And that is the primary, the driver to this project. It needs to be done first before the rest of it can be done. So the next steps is we need to have a surveyor out there on these lots, getting a topographic survey and all the elements that are needed in order to come up with a fully engineered plan. The plan that we showed you tonight was just conceptual. We need to actually have grading and do a design plan that can be constructed from. So that's the next steps on that. We would, because we would be affecting both of those sites of the Granite Group and the Fairfield Inn, we would need to go through planning board, get planning board approval of the modifications to those sites. And if we are reducing parking on the Fairfield Inn site, then we could use a conditional use permit for parking. That's why we're trying not to reduce the parking on that site. We will need a recommendation from the Conservation Commission because there is possibly some work in the wetland buffer of the Hodgson Brook. And possibly a planning board wetland conditional use permit. And we will need easements from both of the landowners to construct the roadway. For the Kate Street Bridge, we have a LPA. LPA stands for Local Project Administration. So it's a state-funded project, but run by the town with oversight by the DOT. And we have our scoping meeting with the DOT on that project next month. That will kick off this project. They'll let us know how are we gonna process this? Can we combine consultants on the other Hodgson Brook project bridge? Do we have to go it alone? And once we know that, then we can go out and hire a consultant to do the design and engineering study for that bridge replacement on Kate Street. The DOT has it in their 10-year plan scheduled for 2028 construction of that bridge. The Coakley Road culvert, I mentioned earlier, that has been red listed this year, which means it's in poor condition. The state is now annually inspecting the bridge rather than every 2 years. We have a consultant selected to prepare the engineering design plans. We have not started yet, based on we need to have our meeting with the DOT and see what's the best way forward. And best case would be to reconstruct that culvert in 2027. And the signal removal project, we should be getting the paperwork from the state on this federal grant by the end of the year. That will allow us to have the money to spend to go out and then hire a consultant to conduct the engineering study and prepare design plans and start the public process on that. The DOT has that signal project in their schedule for 2031 construction. So these projects are all ways off. This is the very beginning stages right now. We just wanted to let people know what's happening. We will have a very lengthy public process as we're going through all these projects. We'll have many meetings. You'll have a chance to weigh in on design details and how you will get your input, incorporate your feedback into this project as we go. But right now, this is, just very preliminary at this stage. We have these projects that we know we need to do, we want to do, we have the funding for them. So we're starting at this process, letting you all know what's happening. So at this point, I can take on any questions, comments. You back?
one thing that I found strikingly missing from the presentation was talked a lot about how the various auto traffic would be rerouted. You said nothing about foot traffic. And so if I want to walk the senior center where I vote, where many of my neighborhood people come, right now there's no sidewalk between Borthwick and Cottage/Kate. So according to this plan, from what I can see, we would have to walk all the way down to the Kate Street Bridge and come all the way back around. Is that the proposed foot traffic replacement for us walking directly here and going to park, taking my kids to Franklin, et cetera?
We haven't fully developed the plans yet, we're just a conceptual at this stage, but that's something that's very key element, because right now there is a pedestrian crosswalk across the bypass, it's signalized. And
Would
when
that stay with a signal, with a button that goes, that has a walking cut through?
most likely not, because we're trying to get rid of the signal, but we can work that out in the design and see what happens, maybe it's possible to keep it, we don't know. That would be brought up through the engineering design and see what's feasible, because certainly that's the most direct route to get here, rather than having to walk down, up, back, around, you know, 'cause
Or,
there
I
aren't-
mean, even a sidewalk, so right now there's 6 lanes between the port in and the other side. When this is gone, we won't need one of those 6 lanes because there will be no left-hand turn into our neighborhood. So presumably it would be down to 5 lanes?
That's something we find out during the design process, and what we can do, how much width we need, what lane, how they can be repurposed. It would be great to be able to get a sidewalk in there. Any sidewalk would have to be maintained by the state, and the state does not build sidewalks on their roads. So that's something we do a lot, we enter into agreements with the state for sidewalks. Yes.
Couple questions. Just by qualification, I've lived on Cottage Street for 48 years. I'm probably the oldest resident there. Okay. Watched the traffic change. With regard to Kate Street, the bridge improvement is a great idea. But Kate Street is a relatively minor road right now. No sidewalks. There's a bit of a hill. And there's a good hefty hedge right on the corner there. And I have watched, actually, I videotaped a man in with a walker headed to the senior center coming up there, almost get clipped by a car. And that between noon and at 6 p.m., all the West End Yard folks are out walking their dogs coming up that street again. There needs to be, is there in the plan for the bridge improvement, a commiserate plan to improve Kate Street, widen it, sidewalks, all that? Is this too early?
It is early, but as part of the bridge reconstruction, we would certainly make room on the bridge for sidewalks.
Okay.
And then later on, you know, as we can put sidewalks along K Street as well, it would certainly be.
Okay, but so my second point is, I see 2 culverts being improved. That's great. This is a perfect opportunity to address the fact that this natural Hodgson Brook has been channelized by the Army Corps in the 50s for flood control. And it is very poor aquatic habitat now. Historically, there were migratory fish runs up there and everything else. And I'm wondering if there's a way to tag onto the culvert rebuilds, habitat reconstruction in that stretch between at least 95 and North Mill Pond to facilitate a migratory fish.
Yeah, at this point, that's not part of the project, but, you know, as we go through the permitting, the regulatory agencies will let us know if there's additional habitat restoration that would be needed. But it is something that is, the planning board, the planning department is aware of the habitat degradation in there and has talked about restoration, you know, for that water body. But this project is not driven by that. This
No, no,
project's a bridge project. But there are often requirements associated with that work, that could address.
Yeah, because I was trying to get it tagged on the Hodgson Way,
Yeah,
right? And I was pretty much blown off. Okay, so I don't want to stop saying it.
Yes, right there.
Also resident of Cottage Street, could you, go back to your goals slide?
Mhm.
So one of your bullet items says reduce cut-through traffic on Bartlett Street, Cotton Street, and Woodbury Avenue. You talked about how Bartlett Street taking people out of the neighborhood and rerouting them. You didn't talk about Cotton Street and Woodbury Avenue. What's that?
Yes. So because as it was, well, before, certainly before Hudson Way was constructed, traffic looking to get to Islington from the circle would come down and make a left up Cottage Street, come up here and then go down the one-way section of Woodbury onto Bartlett to get to Islington. So by removing the signal, putting a median here, those left turns would no longer be able to come up Cottage Street. They wouldn't be able to use this section of Woodbury Ave. That traffic would be redirected down to here to Hodgson and coming up Kate to Bartlett Street. So that's how traffic would be taken off of Cottage. And likewise, any traffic that may come down Woodbury to Cottage to make a left turn would not be able to do that. They would have to come down either Kate or all the way down Hodgson to make a left turn.
Thank you.
How would a car carrier access Cottage Street? Or a moving van or anything else?
Yes, that's why getting Kate Street Bridge reconstructed is key to this project. Because they need to have that access in there. If that's not, then they have a long way around because they would have to come up Bartlett Street, up Thornton and around like this.
You can go that way because you guys don't prohibit trucks up there past the holiday.
But when that's the only route you have, that's what you've got to do. So that's why, reconstructing Kate Street will be critical.
So with the regional, with Portsmouth Hospital being the regional hospital, and now there's a lot more ambulances going through and a lot more traffic. We're now going to shut off Cottage Street going on to Route 1 and make everybody use that intersection that the hospital needs to use for a good proportion, not all of them, but a good portion of them. Is that not going to cause problems for people in ambulances?
There would be more traffic at that location, yes.
Yes.
And that's what we look at in the study to make sure that we have enough lanes and that the intersection can handle that additional traffic. And it's not just looking at the Kate. Well, the Coakley and Cottage intersection, you're also looking at that Hodgson Borthwick intersection to make sure that can handle the additional traffic that will get redirected down.
But you won't know that until you're done with all these alternate construction projects that are going on now and rerouting traffic. And my concern is living on Woodbury Avenue where all the traffic calming was canceled out after the whole neighborhood supported it and somebody went before city council and blanked out a whole year or two's worth of design, that now we have a lot more speeding cars coming down the residential part of Woodbury. And they're not just skipping the traffic circle, they're skipping all of it. So I'm not quite sure that this design is going to make sense.
I mean, the traffic diversions that are going on now with Bartlett Street, Maplewood Ave Bridge, those will be opened up in a matter of months. I mean, by the time we get started on traffic studies, those traffic patterns will be back to normal.
But that's only a small portion of Woodbury Avenue. It's not the portion that comes from the other side of the traffic circle where people are getting off and cutting through neighborhoods. So that would not improve and it would probably get a lot worse. Because people are they're not gonna be able to use Cottage, so they're gonna use alternate routes.
They're continuing down Woodbury too.
Yeah. Yeah, and since the project that you had planned, which was very good, got canceled by the city council, I'm not clear if you put a whole year or two work into this, is this gonna go the same way that you spend all this money and all this time and energy, get it in, and then the city council gets a couple people who don't like it, then it gets canceled, so it just.
On a major project like this, where the bypass is owned and maintained by the state, we're not gonna do anything on this roadway without the state's approval. This has to pass their judgment, their review, their approval to do anything out here. What we'll do is the engineering studies and the design to see if it will work, what it will take to make it work. We'll be working hand in hand with the state on this the whole way. This is not something we're doing on our own and saying, maybe it'll work. We're gonna be working with the state to make sure this works. They're not gonna allow changes to their roadway. It's not gonna work.
And just to correct, the Woodbury Ave traffic calming project isn't scrapped. We're still working on it. It's just that one approach was, not pursued. So we're regrouping and we're coming up with, we have aspects of it that are supported and are gonna be done. The gateway entrances to either end will create a median. So there's work that we are gonna move forward with. We're intending to do it in conjunction with Edmund Avenue, the Edmund Avenue section. And that's in design and, you know, so it's gonna take a little while for that to get done. So the project hasn't been scrapped, it's still moving forward, and the information that's been generated through the design is not wasted effort. It's just that it's used to refine the design.
Because the speed signs are inoperable at this point in time. And even when they were operable, they did not slow the majority of traffic coming down at all.
Sure. And that's been our contention, is that speed signs are not effective management of.
Not unless you have to police their ticketing everybody who goes over the speed limit, which they don't do.
No, it comes down to the roadway design is what. If you're uncomfortable driving, you drive slower. If you're comfortable, you're gonna drive faster. So you have to narrow the roadways, you have to put impediments,
If you know you're gonna get a traffic ticket, you slow down.
but you can't have a police officer 24/7. You know, you can't enforce your way out of it, Aaron.
I've lived on Copley Road for years, I think I'm probably the oldest, and, I'm feeling like they're making us mad, we're gonna be stuck like Gilligan and not be able to get on. Because unless there's a light that connector road that goes in front, unless there's a light there for us to get across to take another left and another left, we're never gonna be able to cross for get on the traffic. You gotta sit there, I mean, I've sat through lights, just regular, coming back from work, but not being able to move. So the traffic is backed up at times from the hospital and changes shifts. It's ridiculous to think you can fold down for Copley Road without just a light. We have new sidewalks, our roads are terrible, becoming terrible idle.
Consider that as part of the study.
I have just to piggyback off this real quick, because if in this proposed plan, would it be possible to take Copley all the way to the bypass, turn right, and then make a U-turn? Would a U-turn be allowed to go back out to the traffic circle? So instead of taking, so if in the time when there are, like when Liberty Mutual is letting out, and so the traffic is way back, is that an option for getting to the traffic?
It would depend on what we have for lane configuration there, if it's a double left, if it's a single left, if it's a median, how much room there is to turn, what size your vehicle is, it's trying to make the U-turn. So it would have to be looked at as part of the design. I couldn't say that right now, what could be allowed, what couldn't be.
But having a second option would be nice.
Steve Workman, I'm the Director of Transport New Hampshire. I focus a lot on public transit and bike ped, so that's one of the comments. But also, I grew up in this neighborhood and my mother still lives there. I've spoken at length against some of the development projects here to protect the Copley neighborhood and my fellow former neighbors and friends, people I've known some my whole life. The problem is there's a bitter pill to swallow here, and I'm not saying this to you, I'm actually saying it to all of you. You have to understand the forces that have created this problem. There is no good solution. Everybody's going to be unhappy. We're not going to be able to do a flyover. Another roundabout is not there, but what we do know around traffic science is every time you put a light in, you slow the level of service for that road. That is part of the problem. We cannot synchronize those two lights because there are so many complex turn signals. Therefore, every time you get a red here, then there's a green here, and they fill the space, and you all know what they're doing now. They're ignoring it. They're parking right, their cars right in the middle. It's unsafe for everybody at this point. I don't see another solution here, and I'm no professional in terms of design, but I've looked at lots of designs in my career, and I don't see how we fix this. But this is what happens when you allow unbridled development, which created so many cars there, and the fact that we've still got two properties in play where people want to develop their properties. So I think that one point I have for you all is what does that do for any sort of a potential moratorium before someone comes in with yet another development before this is finalized? And then getting back to bike ped, my real concerns, and thank you for outlining comprehensively all the improvements the city has made. So we got the New Hampshire Seacoast Greenway, we got the shared use path continuing down Borthwick. We have to figure out how to safely get people across and effectively. You know, bicyclists, walkers are not supposed to be second-class users on a road, especially with the state moving toward a complete streets policy, finally. So we've got to do better there because we can't keep the signal, to your point. That would defeat the purpose. Plus, it is an incredibly vulnerable signal. If we did keep a pedestrian thing there without a regular signalized intersection, it's a disaster. Somebody's going to get hurt. But that said, I don't think we should force people around town just so they could get to something. So I appreciate what you're saying. What I'm hearing anyways is there's going to be a study that looks at these options. We're going to try to find numbers to support them. But I think the takeaway I have again for my residents is we're all going to be a little bit unhappy. This would have needed to have been addressed a long time ago.
Prior to development, some of those.
Right, but here we are, and Portsmouth is desirable. I mean, the other thing is the traffic studies. When's that going to be done? Because we know we get this huge bump during our tourist season, which is pretty long to begin with. And that's the picture. I mean, it was a miserable summer trying to get around anything through here. And the last thing I'd like to say is please consider that there's at least Coast Bus that stops on Borthwick, if not Wildcat Transportation as well. Those are unprotected bus stops. There are no shelters there. If there was an opportunity to include that within this area, that would be fantastic. Especially as we're kind of creating a channel, not just of Coakley residents, but potentially a throughway with more folks would need to access that to get to where they need to go.
1 second.
I travel Kittery over to Coakley constantly. And what I'm finding is the light is beneficial to get through the circle. Believe it or not, it actually stopped, the traffic has a chance to stop so that you can actually come into the circle off the route on the bypass and south from Kittery. So I know it's, nobody wants a light there, but if they take into consideration, it's gonna slow the traffic that's already a mess. Like at shipyard time, quitting time or whatever, trying to come south. You can't get through into the circle, and when that light changes, that's the only time I can get through. Because it stops the traffic, gives me a blank where nobody's coming in from this bypass, right, Route 1 bypass, and I can get through. It's kind of crazy. I mean, it's another thing that needs to be looked at as far as I'm concerned when you guys do your evaluation, but I don't know if anybody was thinking of that side of the issue.
That's something that could be, it's part of the scope of the study, look at that, through the circle. I don't know if an old picture shows it all now, but it's part of the, it's cut off, but there was a plan, it's part of the signalizing of the roundabout, the rotary. There would also be a signal here at the at Woodbury Avenue. So, but that's, that's a major project.
I have a question, and I'm not positive, and I think you answered it with a question back there. But I had heard a while back that Kate Street wants a one-way in, one-way out, one-way street. So are you gonna be able to manage that if people that live on Cottage Street wants to get out, but yet it's only an incoming or outgoing?
For anyone who couldn't hear her question, is K Street proposed to be one way? There is no proposal for making K Street one way.
Okay, I think that was included when they were gonna do the flyover at one point. And then that's when I heard somebody say, oh, K Street wants to go to one way.
And when West End Yards made the original proposal, they had proposed cutting off K Street at the bridge rather than fixing it up.
Yes.
Like that.
Okay. That was it.
I think I'm representing the senior center here and the concerns about losing that traffic light. People come from all over the city and beyond to the senior center, and the Kate Street Bridge, which was falling down to begin with. Right now, because of the traffic diverted there has had an amazing amount of traffic going over it, much more than it's ever had in the past. And I'm wondering if that bridge is even gonna make it to the date that you're talking about, because there's constant traffic on it. I walk over there several times a week. It is deadly to walk down that street right now, and it will continue to be. People, there's no sidewalk, there's no sidewalk there, and it's a senior center, and there needs to be a sidewalk, and there needs to be a way to get across Cottage Street safely, because somebody mentioned somebody got hurt. There's a sign that says no parking here to corner. If you're driving, you cannot see up the street to Bartlett Street to see, because people park right in front of the sign that says no parking here to corner, and nobody ever tickets them or gets rid of them. So you're pulling out, and it's horrible. We cannot lose that traffic light until all of these things are taken care of. The traffic
And
light
that's actually the schedule, Dan. It's the last thing that's gonna get done. And remember, you advocated for sidewalks on Chevrolet Ave.
You know me.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Did they get done?
got
Did they get
done.
done?
I want
So
to see my
your
kids.
voice is heard. We know it's important. We don't disclose our eyes to all these things. We have limited resources. We try to do the best we can.
Right.
And that's what we're doing right now. We're grappling with a difficult situation that's exacerbated by that second light. So we need to come up with a solution that works for everybody. We understand that it's not gonna be perfect,
Right.
but we will make it better.
We understand that Kate Street is seriously broken, but we can't fix it until we fix the bridge. The street's so small that when we fix the bridge, we can fix the sidewalks.
The bridge, but what about getting people to cut down those hedges or move the cars, because that's
That'll be
dangerous.
part of a bigger,
That'll be part of that project.
You might bring that to your buddy, the policeman, they work for you guys, don't they?
They don't work for us. They work
Because
with-
I tell you
they
what,
work
they-
with us.
there's somebody parked there most of the time, right in front of that sign.
Yes, right in front of that sign.
Street wider?
At this point, there's no design to work on Kate Street. The bridge needs to be done, and as part of that, we acknowledge there needs to be a sidewalk. And that entails reworking the roadway. So it depends on, the hedges need to be addressed. That whole corridor needs to be addressed. We understand that.
So,
turning radius.
assuming, granted that bridge needs to be there, but shouldn't you project the cost and features on the development of the project?
Yeah.
When you look at the size of the bridge, and you look at the smallness of the roadway, the increase in traffic, wouldn't you say, maybe I should make that bridge wider? Because the traffic. volume-
That is part of the process. That's what we're doing.
Wider bridge.
Yeah.
wider-
Yeah. Yep.
So also I say, and I'm not, when you take out that light and you enhance capabilities as King Street. And now change the flow of traffic, and granted that possibly more development here, and traffic. How do you project the volume of traffic that's been shifted from one to another location? Making it more conducive to go down, by West End into. Do you do that now, or do you build it and then construct your studies and projections for the future after you've done
It's
this?
best to do the study in the iterative process, so that as you make each change, you just change the model a little bit. So you can see what actually happened, so you can fine tune the model as you go.
So unlike the state's proposal years ago, to the design you have now, which granted made some interesting changes over that period. Is that indicating the slowness of the project on future designs because of impact of traffic? Granted, they probably didn't foresee the amount of traffic that was going on. So because of the development, its popularity. So now you have a case where you're projecting future like development. And you want to look at the future event. What do you do? It's 10-year increments, 5 or longer. Because if you look at a 5-year, 10-year, and the kind of growth patterns that we're seeing in Portsmouth, you can totally blow that out of the water. And by the time you do your project, you design for something small when we need something big.
Right. So the first thing I do is I rely on the technical experts, because I'm not a traffic engineer. So, Eric could describe more what goes into the traffic modeling. But they look at land use, they look at volumes of traffic associated with the different types of land use, potential development. They do all that work, and they do update them on a regular basis if the client asks. And because we are seeing these kind of growths, we do look at this each time a new development comes in, we revisit these models, we have them project out. So Eric, I mean, I don't know if you can add to that or.
And on a major study like this, state requirement is that you look out 10 years after it's built. So say it's we projected to be built in 2031, we would also look out to 2041. How would the traffic be at that point? And you look at that, you look at based on past growth rates, you look at other land uses in the area, what could be contributing traffic to it. You look at the traffic patterns in the area, the roadways, how would traffic shift onto these other roadways if they were built or changed or modified? And that's how you come up with that 10-year projection. So it's a very iterative, complex process that goes into these.
Are you gonna have bicycles not on the sidewalk? Because that is incredibly dangerous for pedestrians or people with limited vision, or where you just have got to, I've almost gotten hit by bicycles on Woodbury Avenue sidewalks.
That's
The good bicycle riders ride on the street, but on some streets you can't do that because it's so congested and the traffic's moving so fast. So if you don't put in bicycle lanes and you let them drive on the sidewalk, it's really dangerous.
But by state law, bicycles are not allowed on sidewalks.
Well, they are, and there's no signage that says bicycles can be on the side. I don't mind toddlers
We're not
on
gonna put signs up.
three-wheel bicycles because they're not going that fast.
Your point about having safe corridors for bicyclists is important. We are in the process of developing a citywide bicycle master plan, bicycle pedestrian master plan. The reason we built a very wide sidewalk along Borthwick Avenue is it's a multi-use path. It's both for pedestrians and bicyclists. That way you have adequate space. We can't necessarily do that on every street. So there's compromises, like all things in life, that sometimes you can put these amenities in, sometimes you can't.
I don't care if they're in or not, I just want the bicycles not on the sidewalk because it's dangerous to pedestrians and people with limited vision. And so having almost been hit by bicycles twice, 2 different times, I really find some people ride on the street in the lane, parking lane, that's not a problem. But the faster traffic goes, the more dangerous it is for bicyclists also.
Understood.
Yes, in the back.
Just real quick, and you start here already touched on this, but what is the timeline for the proposed connecting road? Would that be built before the whole road?
Ideally, yes, that would be the first thing to get built. Is that-
27?
I think we had that in, is it? Believe it.
28 was what the state said that you might do it earlier.
28.
Yeah, well, the connected roadway is not a state funded project, that's entirely a city project, so. Unless we're tied up to the state process, unless they say no, because it's tied into this signal project, we want you to tie it together. They're hoping that we don't have to do that, because we could do it a lot faster on our own. That's to be determined, that has to go first before the rest of the project.
Does it have to go through the planning board and?
Oh, yes, the connected roadway, yes, because of the effects on those private properties. Back, Kelly?
Don't throw things at me, people. But I found very effective, prior to like the Kate Street being done and the bridge being unsafe and people not being able to walk on it safely. I have found going to the Park Traffic and Safety Committee meetings once a month on Thursday mornings is really effective. And you really can get Eric's ear there, and we can really go over, doing something in the interim to help make those areas that are unsafe a little bit safer for walkers and things, to just kind of make it safer, more accessible, if that's the only way that there is to get around. I found that going to those meetings are very effective to get things done on your road. It's worked for me, and if it's worked for me, it will work for everyone else. Right, Eric?
Thank you, Kelly, yes. Sure.
I just wanted to say, there's been a lot of people concerns. I'm actually very supportive of this. Maybe I'm the only one in the neighborhood. I'm very concerned about the foot traffic part not being part of this presentation at all, and how we're gonna walk places. As far as car traffic goes, I'm very supportive, but I think it's a great idea to get rid of that signal, and getting to Borthwick easier will be really nice. So I like this. And to say one positive thing out.
Yes, you had to come.
So yeah, just wondering, when was the study done? So we're making this huge change now, we're looking at that. When was the study done that created the traffic flow as it currently exists? When was that done?
That study was done in 2019 for West End Yards.
Okay, West End. So for West End Yards, that's a huge development. We didn't anticipate all those people to be here.
Oh, yes, that study took into account.
Oh, so then what is the problem? I mean, what is developed since 2019 that we weren't anticipating? That we now need to do this?
That wasn't
Yeah.
done back when they did that.
I went to the meeting in 2006 when we discussed
Oh, 2006.
This evolved.
So that's why I'm wondering, so in 2019, due to the West End project, we didn't make any changes,
Yeah,
and we
well,
didn't
yeah,
anticipate any
well, it's 20,
increase in traffic flow and.
Oh, this was anticipated, and we've been looking at this project for years, trying to get it to come together.
Well, I think the answer to that is yes, we did, and that's why we built Hodgson Way.
Bill, I'm
And,
sorry,
and
what-
we got millions of dollars out of the developer to build Hodgson Way and to put in the, enhance that signal with Northwick, because we anticipated that all these projects were in the future. So we absolutely anticipated all that traffic,
Kate
and we
Street,
absolutely made the developer pay for it,
Yes.
yes.
That's
Absolutely.
crazy. That remains nuts, that Kate Street. Yeah.
Eric, could you touch on how the DOT rates like these intersections and kind of the timeline that they do that to say like, this is a graded A and this is a failing intersection and this is a good intersection? Because I think that plays a part of this too, is that the DOT rates intersections on their roads.
Yes, it's what they call a level of service for an intersection. It's based on how much delay there is to get through an intersection. And the level of service, A, it's like a report card, you have A through F. A is very little delay coming through an intersection. F is you're sitting there through more than one cycle, waiting to get moved slowly through the signal. And in these intersections here are your D, E, F in that range. There's a lot of delay, a lot of queuing, especially in the summertime. But even, you saw it tonight, it's a long delay in queuing. And it's all interrelated. You have this traffic circle, which doesn't work well with the volume that it has in speeds. And then that spills back into your next intersection. And then that doesn't function well, and that spills back to your next intersection. So it's all interrelated, and they all fail or close to failing at certain times of the day. And that's how you look at these things. You look at air quality because the cars are sitting there idling and you have delay, emergency vehicles can't get through to get to the hospital. So there's a lot of factors that go into this thing, prioritizing what improvements need to be done.
And what's the significance of the DOT rating system? What's the
It gives you an idea.
here in our city?
It gives you an idea how poorly the intersection works compared to other intersections around. It's a common report card of rating an intersection.
So they just rate it and then that's it?
No, it's
It helps with the project adoption, like the CMAC.
If you're below becoming a room like this.
Well, when hospital, for example, when West End Yards was built, their traffic study said, okay, under current conditions, you're gonna have a level of service F. Something has to be done to fix this, to bring it back to a higher rate. And they did, all that they did, they built Hodgson Ways, they expanded that intersection, they put new signal equipment in.
They paid for it.
Yes,
And they pay for it.
As they should.
Yeah.
As they should.
Yeah, nobody's saying they shouldn't, but
Yeah,
that's
I'm not
part of
saying
the
we need
developer
this.
when you're looking at impact, but I think it's important what this gentleman mentioned that this first plan goes back almost 20 years to 2006. when it was
So
first
maybe there
addressing
should
it.
have been changes made 2006, 2010, 2000.
well, there's so many things that need to be done. We had, I think it was 7 bridges over the bypass. And the state said, well, it's more important to keep those bridges functioning and repairing those than it was to working on this. So now we've got the bridges done, now we can focus on this project. It's the next key element.
Is the railroad bridge, is the railroad intersection anywhere in this?
Yeah, that's another separate project.
Yeah. Timeline, any timeline on?
I wish. But I have a meeting tomorrow with Federal Railroad. They are supposed to be giving us our grant money by the end of this year. And that will start the design for the new bridge over at Bartlett Street, the new railroad bridge. And then once we get that designed, then we can apply for another grant to reconstruct that bridge. So that is another project which is moving along.
Remember though, that we don't own that bridge.
No.
Oh, we know.
I know, so it's not just simple for us to make a change.
I would just like to say I drive Cottage onto Route 1 going south and then coming back all different times, not early in the morning, but all different times, including afternoon rush hour and afternoon rush hour when the school's getting out. And I have never sat at the light at Cottage Street, either coming or going for more than one light change. Never. So I don't understand where the data comes from. It's that's
that light just to go here.
Well, the bigger problem is a major problem is the left turns coming out of Boardman, heavy, hospital shifts coming out, and then they come up and then they hit the red light at Cottage. And then it just backs up through the intersection. That is really a major problem here. Yeah, the left turn that you mentioned isn't bad. I use it myself when coming back to the office. I come down to Cottage and take a left turn. But yeah, I mean, and the state did recently make some changes to the timings out there. So the left turn that goes down Hodgson Way first rather than last, and that has cleared the intersection out somewhat.
Yes.
There is still improvements that could be made. So,
Can they
You
do
talk
that?
about A through C rating. Does that help the state set priorities for funding?
yeah, that you see that it's working poorly. You're not gonna spend a lot of money and time on an intersection that's at A or B.
Yeah.
You're looking at the ones that
All
are.
right, but in terms of this then, is it, I'm in favor of it in general, like I said, I'm trying to add on. But, is there a way to accelerate the schedule, or is this about as fast as engineers can move?
It's about as fast as money.
Engineers can move fast, but there's a process, you need to have public involvement, you need to have review done.
And the federal government.
Yes, and the federal is paying for this, so.
They have a lot of strings.
They have a lot of strings attached, you have to, jump through their hoops as well. We're moving it as fast as we can.
I do notice that the lights at Copley Cottage, they're preset different times throughout the night. Go down there at night, bingo and switch. In the afternoon, no way. I think that's why people are running and stopping. Is there anything you can do to kind of tweak that until things can get done?
Yeah, well, the state controls those signals. And they have a timing plan in place for them. And during the peak hours, they're just on a preset synchronized plan to get the traffic through there as possible. Then when the traffic lightens up, then they can go to free operation where it actually detects the traffic and says, okay, nobody's coming here, they turn that red, turn this one green. It works much more efficient.
It was an entire year where that didn't work. They recently fixed it, like leave at 5 in the morning. For the entire year where I would run that red light all the time, 5 in the morning. I mean, I didn't actually do that.
You wanted to.
When the newspaper article came out a few weeks ago, there was a suggestion of like a sign up so people could sign up with the city so you get notice. Has that been set up yet?
Yeah.
If you haven't, there's a sign-in sheet right here, to put your information on so you can get onto that list.
We'll also have a website on the city's webpage.
So if you go to Public Works and then on the top line, there's a projects tab and go to Route 1 bypass is the name of the project alphabetically. And on that page, at the bottom of the page, there's a give us your email and that puts you on the list and then we keep you updated. Thank you for signing.
One our time. Any other questions?
I just have a question about the street sign. I mean, it's Hodgson Way that stops in the middle of it and it's a little, I mean, I know it, but I think for other people, it's probably a little confusing that the street changes its name in the middle of basically the middle of the block. I know it's where the other street comes in, but
It's the Scott Ave Bridge to the Daniel Street to Congress Street to Islington.
yeah. All of that, but
Long history of
Yeah, we
bad names.
we have a lot of people we have to name things after.
Woodbury Avenue turns into Market Street. It's all kinds of bad stuff.
Well, I think part of the intent was the businesses on Kate Street probably didn't want to lose their address, their numbers.
I know, but you know, at some point, it's gotta happen. So, because it's kind of ridiculous that the street. I mean, it used to curve there, but it doesn't anymore, and it's bizarre. It's a little bizarre.
Well, thank you all for coming out. There'll be plenty of opportunity for further discussion. We look
Thank you.
forward to getting input.
Is this presentation, I didn't hear, is this presentation on?
Not yet, we will put it on tomorrow.
Okay. And where will you?
That'll be on the DPW webpage.
Uh,
On the city's website. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're gonna get live.
Have a good night.
Take care. Yep.
Bye-bye.
I'm seeing on the great.